대한민국은 장병들에게 영광입니다.
In the beginning of the 20th century, Korea was occupied by Japan and had tremendous influence from Japanese culture. Although Japan built up Korea's transportation systems, they also forced people to adapt to Japanese culture, religion, language, and way of life. The restrictions resulted in a rebellion for independence. Thousands of revolutionists were killed and many buildings were destroyed. During the Second World War, Japan extracted much of Korea's resources and manpower. After the Japanese surrendered in World War I in 1945, the peninsula of Korea was split into the north, controlled by the USSR, and the south, controlled by the US. Under the support of the United Nations, a democratic nation called the Republic of Korea was formed in the southern part of Korea, while a communist nation called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea was formed in the north. In June of 1950, North Korea invaded the south and triggered the Korean War, which lasted 3 years and killed millions. In 1961, General Park formed a military force that crushed civilian government, and he elected himself president. His oppressive government caused major changes in economics and Korean society. This led to their formation as an industrialized nation. After the assassination of General Park by the Korean CIA, restrictions on political protests caused bloody riots which killed thousands. Later, President No formed political ties with many non-capitalist countries like China and the Soviet Union, both long-term allies of the communist North Korea. The election of Kim Jong-sam began a time of many reforms, but at the end of his rule left the nation in a terrible economic situation. The next president-elect was President Kim Jong, who ruled until his death, passing the leadership responsibilities to his son, Kim Jong II.
Foreign relations with North Korea are and have always been tense ever since the end of World War II and the Cold War. Most countries do not trust North Korea, and this is due to their recent developments in their nuclear program, as well as uranium enrichment programs. North Korea is still at war with South Korea and Western governments. It is one of the most authoritarian governments today and has good relations with only China. North Korea had depended on the Soviet Union and China during the Cold War and sometime after for military support and supplies, but as tensions grew between Russia and China, it became hard to get supplies from both. Eventually, South Korea established relations with China and Russia, putting strain on North Korea's relations with the two countries. As communism began to disappear in the Western world, and as the Soviet Union fell apart, North Korea began to depend on itself more and more until it had become an isolationist government. However, starting in the 70s, North Korea began opening relations with South Korea. They opened trade and began working towards peaceful reunification of the peninsula. In 1991, North Korea joined the United Nations and joined international organizations such as International Postal Union, UN Conference on Trade and Development, and the International Committee of the Red Cross. Overall, North Korea has made great progress in foreign relations and is slowing down their production rates, but they still have ways to go with denuclearization.
North Korea began developing its nuclear research in the mid-1960s. The North established a massive research center in Yongbyon and received training in atomic research from the USSR. In 1977, the DPRK and the International Atomic Energy Agency made an agreement granting the IAEA the ability to inspect the DPRK's reactors. These inspections soon gave intelligence in the 80s that the North was operating facilities for uranium fabrication and conversion and had secret nuclear reactors under construction near Yongbyon. Therefore, in 1985, North Korea was pressured to agree to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, or the NPT. Other agreements between North Korea and South Korea included the Agreement on Reconciliation, Non-Aggression, Exchanges, and Cooperation, and the Joint Declaration on the Denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula in 1991. But the North would continue to disallow the IAEA's permission to inspect its nuclear facilities. This continuing secrecy blatantly ignored treaties the North had signed, and in 1993, the North had completely withdrawn from the NPT. The CIA had discovered that the North had enough plutonium to create 2 nuclear bombs. To stop a crisis from beginning, in 1994, the United States negotiated with the North the Agreed Framework, an agreement that established that the North would stop its nuclear program in exchange for alternative resources. However, North Korea violated this agreement when in 2002 Assistant Secretary of State James Kelly revealed the North's clandestine program to enrich uranium for atomic bombs. North Korea had conducted its first nuclear test on October 9, 2006. In response, the six-party talks comprised of the US, Russia, China, Japan, and South and North Korea resumed in 2007, calling for the DPRK to shut down its nuclear plants in exchange for emergency energy assistance to the North. Despite economic sanctions by the UN, North Korea continues to dismiss IAEA inspectors from their nuclear complex in Yongbyon. As North Korea's commitment problem to these treaties continues, it becomes clear how great of a threat the North is becoming internationally. The implications of these refusals to cooperate with UN procedures indicate the North is willing to use its atomic bombs or possibly sell them to terrorists. Because of their communist background, the North will never agree to peaceful terms about atomic weapons, and therefore will remain a threat to international security.